Noor Almaleki accompanied her close friend, Amal, to the Arizona Department of Economic Security office one afternoon. Amal needed assistance completing official American paperwork and had asked Noor to come along because she was fluent in English and could help translate if needed. While Amal met with staff and took care of her documents, Noor waited nearby, passing the time on her phone. She texted friends, scrolled through messages, and even began making plans for later in the day, aiming for around 1:30 p.m. Once Amal finished her appointment, the two women exited the building together. Outside, the sun was blazing and the heat was intense. Both women felt thirsty and tired from being indoors for so long. Noor suggested that they stop by a nearby restaurant to get something cold to drink and maybe grab a quick bite to eat before heading on their way to. As they walked toward the restaurant, chatting casually and deciding what they might order, the calm of the moment was suddenly shattered. They heard the unmistakable sound of a powerful engine accelerating nearby. Before either of them could fully react or understand what was happening, a gray SUV came speeding directly toward them. There was no time to escape. The vehicle struck both women with devastating force. Amal was thrown nearly 30 feet through the air, but in those brief seconds, she managed to see the driver's face behind the wheel. Noor was knocked violently to the ground, suffering a severe fall that caused overwhelming pain throughout her body. The pain was intense and all-consuming, and moments later, she lost consciousness 13 days after the collision. Noor was pronounced brain dead. Investigators quickly examined the circumstances and evidence surrounding the incident. Within just 5 minutes, detectives reached a clear conclusion. This was not a tragic accident or a random hit and run. The attack had been deliberate. Welcome to my channel, Only True Crime. If you're interested in real-life crime stories, you're in the right place because that's exactly what this channel is all about. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. It's completely free and simply notifies you whenever new content is uploaded. Noor Almaleki was born on February 18th, 1989. When she was just 4 years old, her family immigrated from Iraq to the United States in search of stability and opportunity. They eventually settled in the Paradise Views neighborhood of Phoenix, Arizona, where they built a life and made it their home. Noor's father worked long hours as a truck driver, while her mother was employed by a California-based company, serving as a counselor for American soldiers stationed in the Middle East. As the oldest daughter in the family, Noor carried a great deal of responsibility. She had 6 younger siblings, 2 sisters and 4 brothers, and was often expected to help care for them. Friends and relatives remember Noor as a cheerful and warm young woman with a bright personality. She had a few simple favorites: Keanu Reeves, Chipotle, and shopping at Forever 21. Noor dreamed of becoming a teacher, and at the time of the case, she was pursuing that goal by attending Glendale Community College. She was fluent in both Arabic and English and maintained a strong connection to her religious and cultural roots, while still being outgoing and making friends easily. From a very young age, Noor was expected to manage household duties, including cooking, cleaning, and caring for her siblings. Failure to meet these expectations often resulted in punishment. Her family maintained strict rules, particularly when it came to socializing with boys, and they held Noor to very high standards of behavior. While this may seem harsh to some, it's important to understand that the Almaleki family followed cultural traditions and beliefs that differed from what many in the United States might be accustomed to. Even after moving to America, they did not want their children to adopt what they viewed as Western lifestyles, choosing instead to preserve their customs and values. The Almaleki parents enforced extremely strict rules for their daughters, including a complete prohibition on interacting with boys. They did not allow revealing clothing, makeup, photos with males, late nights out, or any form of closeness with the opposite gender, believing such behavior would bring shame upon the family. According to Fele, nothing mattered more to him than protecting his family's honor be why contrast. Noor, who had lived in the United States for 16 years, began to dream of independence. She wanted a career she enjoyed, the freedom to make her own choices, and eventually the opportunity to marry someone she loved. Her parents, however, had very different plans. They intended to arrange her marriage to a man she had never met, someone significantly older and from Iraq. To them, independence of any kind, financial, social, or personal, was not acceptable for their daughters. In their view, the greatest success in life was seeing their daughter married according to tradition, even to a stranger. While this belief may be difficult for many to understand, it is a cultural practice that some people in the Middle East accept and even prefer. Noor, however, did not share that view. Despite the pressure, Noor tried to balance respect for her cultural roots with her desire for personal freedom. She took a job at a restaurant and spent time with friends, while still maintaining boundaries with the opposite gender. She was responsible and careful not to engage in behavior that would bring shame to her parents or violate their deeply held values. At the same time, she was adapting well to life in America. She wore jeans, used makeup, and styled her hair, not to seek attention, but as a form of self-expression and identity. Unfortunately, her family, especially her father, Fele, strongly disapproved of these changes. He believed that Noor was damaging the family's reputation by dressing in ways he considered inappropriate. To her parents, modesty was the most important expectation placed on women. Every culture has its own standards and values, and this isn't about judging how anyone chooses to dress. However, when living in a country that isn't your place of origin, there's often unspoken pressure to blend in, whether through clothing, language, or behavior, simply to feel accepted and avoid being singled out. Unfortunately, standing out can sometimes lead to ridicule or worse. That reality, unfair as it is part of the world we live in, even in a country that prides itself on freedom. Noor was trying to find a balance between fitting in and remaining true to her beliefs. She wanted to express herself in a way that allowed her to feel included, while still honoring her values and cultural background. Her parents, however, saw things very differently. They believed Noor's appearance and behavior were provocative, that she was acting too American, and that her choices were bringing shame upon the family. This placed Noor in an incredibly painful and difficult position. She wasn't trying to rebel or cause harm. She simply wanted the freedom to be herself. She wanted to make her own choices, express her preferences, and live a life that felt authentic to her. Above all, she just wanted to be happy. Tragically, that chance at happiness was taken from her far too soon. October 20th, 2009, would become a life-altering day for Noor Almaleki. That afternoon, she was spending time with a family friend, Amal Khalif. Amal was a mother of four who, like Noor's family, had immigrated to the United States from Iraq. Because both families came from the same region, they naturally formed a close connection over time. They saw each other often, and Noor, who was fluent in English, frequently helped Amal with errands and appointments on that day. The two women were at the Arizona Department of Economic Security Office. Although Amal could speak some English, she struggled with it, so Noor assisted her throughout the visit. Once they finished their business, they headed toward the parking lot, where Amal's son was supposed to pick them up. While waiting, they decided to walk to a nearby restaurant to grab something to eat. As they made their way across the parking lot, everything changed in an instant. An SUV suddenly accelerated straight toward them. The moment unfolded rapidly, leaving no time to react. The vehicle struck Noor first, knocking her to the ground and causing her to lose consciousness. Amal was also hit, suffering serious injuries and being thrown a significant distance by the impact. Amal remained conscious despite her injuries. Witnesses immediately called emergency services, and some reported seeing the driver flee the scene in the SUV. The parking lot quickly filled with police officers, paramedics, ambulances, and shocked bystanders. Both women were rushed to a nearby hospital. Noor had sustained severe brain injuries, and the damage left parts of her body paralyzed. Though she was still alive, her condition was critical. Doctors placed her in a medically induced coma in hopes of stabilizing her. Police officers remained stationed near the hospital rooms, closely monitoring the situation. Tragically, 13 days after the incident, Noor developed a serious infection that spread to her heart. Her condition worsened, and doctors had little hope for recovery. On November 2, 2009, 20-year-old Noor Almaleki was declared clinically brain dead. Later that morning, at 11:54 a.m., her family made the heartbreaking decision to remove her from life support. Her mother and brother were by her side when she passed away. Noor had dreamed of becoming a teacher and living an independent life. In an instant, those dreams were gone. Her death devastated those who knew her and left many people searching for answers. The speed and violence of what happened in that parking lot shocked the community, and everyone wanted to know who was responsible. You might assume that Noor's family was searching for justice as well. But what if they already knew who was behind the wheel all along? In the aftermath of the hit and run, detectives quickly began interviewing witnesses. One of the first people they spoke with was Amal, the only eyewitness to the incident. Although she had survived, her injuries were severe, and she faced a long road to recovery. Still, she was able to speak with investigators, and what she told them only deepened the mystery. Amal revealed that Noor had been living with her and her children for the past 4 months. This immediately raised questions. Noor had a family of her own and was attending college, so detectives struggled to understand why she would be staying with a family friend. That was when Amal began to share what had been happening inside the Almaleki household, and it painted a troubling picture. Outwardly, Noor appeared cheerful and composed, but behind closed doors, she was suffocating under her parents' strict control. Much of the tension traced back to a trip the family took to Iraq in 2008. Noor's father, Faleh, had told her the trip was necessary to visit a sick relative. Once there, however, Noor learned the real purpose of the journey. Her parents intended to arrange her marriage to a much older cousin she barely knew. Whether a formal marriage took place remains unclear, but her parents' intentions were unmistakable. They believed marrying Noor off would prevent what they saw as further damage to the family's reputation. In their minds, marriage would force Noor onto what they considered the right path, curbing her independence and stopping behaviors they viewed as shameful, such as wearing makeup, dressing like her peers, and sharing photos on social media. They believed marriage would fix everything. It didn't. After returning from Iraq, Noor became increasingly unhappy and resistant. While she respected her faith, she wanted to marry someone she chose, someone she loved and trusted. Around the spring of 2009, she found a small sense of freedom by getting a job and even securing her own apartment. That independence didn't last long. Her family confronted her at work, caused a scene, and pressured her into returning home. With that, Noor lost the little autonomy she had gained. Not long after, the situation escalated. Noor endured repeated physical abuse. When she tried to escape by taking the family car, her father reported it stolen and even attempted to pursue criminal charges, claiming she had dishonored the family. The conflict only intensified. The breaking point came after Noor took a photo with friends at a small gathering. One of the friends happened to be male. The image was innocent, but her parents reacted with fury. An argument followed, and Noor was struck again. Her father justified his actions by asserting control over her life, ignoring the fact that his own beliefs emphasized protection, not harm. In June 2009, Noor fled the family home and sought refuge with Amal. Amal found her distraught and sleeping in a car and took her in. Noor confided in her, sharing details about the abuse the attempted arranged marriage, and her fear of returning home. Amal believed Noor would be safer staying with her, but that safety was short-lived. When Fele learned where Noor was staying, he began harassing Amal and her family. Tensions escalated to the point where police were called. Amal and her husband tried to reason with him, insisting Noor had the right to choose where she lived, but he refused to accept it. During this time, Noor formed a close bond with Amal's 19-year-old son, Marwan. What began as a friendship slowly developed into a romantic connection. Their relationship was not physical. Marwan provided emotional support and understanding during an incredibly difficult period in Noor's life. For Noor, he represented kindness, stability, and the possibility of a future built on mutual respect. When Fele discovered this relationship, his anger intensified. To him, it was proof that Noor was defying family expectations and threatening their honor. In his view, she had already been promised to someone else, and her desire to choose her own path was unacceptable. After the incident in the parking lot, detectives went to the Almaleki home to inform the family. Noor's brother, Ali, answered the door. He admitted that the household had become increasingly volatile, especially after Noor returned from Iraq. Ali expressed conflicted feelings. He believed Noor was straying from traditional values, but he also disagreed with how his father handled the situation. He even revealed that his father engaged in behaviors that contradicted the very beliefs he enforced so harshly on Noor, highlighting a painful double standard. Finally, investigators returned to Amal, who was still hospitalized but alert. They asked her the most critical question of all. Had she seen the driver? Amal answered without hesitation. She said she would never forget the face behind the wheel. It was Fele Almaleki. According to Amal, Noor's own father was the one who drove the SUV into her, and then fled the scene. Noor lost her life because she wanted independence, because she wanted financial freedom, because she wanted the right to make her own choices, for wanting to live on her own terms. Noor paid the ultimate price. Fele was now on the run. Even more troubling was the suspicion that Noor's mother, Siam, may have played a role in helping him escape. Investigators soon learned that Fele had fled to Mexico, sold his vehicle in Nogales, and then boarded a flight to London. It was clear he was trying to put as much distance between himself and the crime as possible. My heart truly goes out to Amal. She was one of the few people who supported Noor without judgment during such a difficult chapter of her life. The fact that Fele showed no hesitation in targeting two defenseless women is deeply unsettling and offers a disturbing glimpse into his mindset. While Fele attempted to hide out in the United Kingdom, authorities in the United States had already issued a warrant for his arrest, officially labeling him a fugitive. Detectives also uncovered that a Middle Eastern woman and a young man, later identified as Siam and one of her sons, had picked up a prescription for Fele back in Phoenix. Fele was diabetic and required regular medication, and this discovery strongly suggested that members of his family were assisting him while publicly claiming they had no idea where he was or what he had done. Despite the evidence, Siam continued to place blame on Amal, accusing her of lying to detectives and portraying her as deceitful. She repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, even making the statement, "We're Muslims. We don't kill our daughters." The case took a critical turn when Noor's brother, Ali, came forward with new information. He revealed that after Noor left home to live with Amal, Fele had been monitoring her movements closely. Alarmingly, Fele was present at the Arizona Department of Economic Security office on the very day of the incident, accompanied by Ali himself. Phone records showed Noor was frightened, messaging friends that her father was outside the building. Later, she texted again, relieved that she no longer saw him, believing he had left. Tragically, that sense of relief was short-lived. Shortly afterward, as Noor and Amal walked through the parking lot, They were struck by a speeding SUV, later confirmed to belong to Faileh. On October 27th, authorities in the UK arrested Noor Almaleki and extradited him back to the United States. At that time, Noor was still alive but remained in a coma. The following day, Faileh's SUV was recovered, and forensic testing confirmed it had been involved in the attack. Faileh was held on a $5 million bond as he awaited trial. During that period, Noor sadly passed away. Prosecutors initially sought a first-degree murder conviction, but the jury determined there was insufficient evidence of premeditation. Ultimately, Faileh was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 34.5 years in prison. A substantial sentence, though for many, it still felt insufficient given the circumstances. Noor's case marked the first honor killing to be tried in Arizona state history. It is a case that deeply shocked the public, one that starkly contrasted a family's claimed sense of honor with the life of a young woman who simply wanted independence and the freedom to choose her own path. Muslims around the world condemned Faileh's actions, emphasizing that nothing in their faith condones violence against one's children. His actions were widely viewed as a betrayal of both religious teachings and basic human morality. Noor's faith allowed her to pursue education, a career, and personal choice, but those rights were taken from her by the very person meant to protect her. Murder, regardless of belief, culture, or tradition, is wrong. No ideology has the authority to justify taking an innocent life. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Only True Crime. If you found this case compelling, be sure to check out another story on the channel, and don't forget to subscribe. It's completely free and helps you stay up to date with future uploads.